Hello Guardians, it is Ebontis, and it is November 29th. We have 1 week left in the season. 6 days and 12 hours by the time I'm recording this one. And while I'm bounty hoarding so I can work on a dungeon guide for you guys when that thing drops next season, I wanted to talk about this season, because as I'm 99% sure now seen all of it since we got a little cinematic today, I kind of wanted to do a retrospective and see why some people are like screaming in the small echo chamber of Twitter that this is the worst season ever. Now, granted, if you're a PvP player, I can understand that it has been neglected for a while, and neglect is a legitimate word. I think Disjunction was the first new map that we got. That was last season. In 300 some odd, or sorry, I'm like 3 years, we're getting 1 new map next year and 2 reprised ones. They are going to rebuild comp next season, which I am curious to try, without cosmetics, which I'm kind of sad on lacking. You're going to have your 6v6, your Control and Clash put together, Trials, Iron Banner. It's got some attention now, but it took a long time to get there. So I know PvP players, you're frustrated. That's not really my main focus in this one, though. My main focus is talking about what the season offered, mostly on a PvE front, because not much happened in PvP. So I did want to say that up front. I am sorry for PvP players or people who even want to partake in PvP. Hasn't been a whole lot that's changed there. Hopefully soon. That being said, this season we got a couple of activities. Now, first one we got was Catch Crash. And I think most people would probably say Catch Crash was actually a pretty decent activity. You were in the ship, pretty cool little environment. I would say they used a catch fairly well for an activity. You had the double tanks, you had the small security room, you had the ether tanks, you had a rotating boss like 3 different weeks. I think right now in the final week it's rotating every day. But generally, I think most people had fun in here. If you did it on Master, you had some champions. I will say real quick, some of the seasonal challenges mentioned trying to do Master. I think the seasonal higher difficulty, whether it's Legend, Psyops, Battlegrounds, or Master Catch Crash, being as the way I did my Master Catch Crash was by going to Bungie.net, find a fire team with no microphone, random matchmaking, and then we joined a fire team and they hit go and we eventually got it done. You may as well put matchmaking on a higher difficulty for a seasonal activity. And all I think you would have to do to make that possible is probably take off Extinguish. And if you want to put Extinguish on there and let people fail once or twice, I guess they'll learn, which isn't all bad. But the equipment lockout, I think, would probably be one thing just to give a little flexibility. Because if for some reason people just don't quite pay attention and you jump in with people who don't have champions covered, would be nice in the game to be able to switch. But I mean, random people, you could put a level cap on them. 1600, 10 below. I mean, 10 or 15 below, don't come in here at some like 15, 20 level and just get smashed. But reasonable level, come in here, turn off locked loadouts, give it a shot. Just give it a try. That's all I'm asking. Feel like you'd have some success, because when seasonal challenges ask you to do it, or if there's an option to do a seasonal challenge like 5 to 10 times faster by doing it on a higher difficulty, give people a shot. I feel like that's not a bad thing. Catch Crash, though, I feel like people have said, when it comes to 6-person activities, this one's probably a solid one, for sure. Expeditions, though. I think expeditions were a bigger issue, because we had 2 currencies. We had map fragments. These guys, those are earned by completing Catch Crash. And you're like, okay, that's fine. And then you had treasure coordinates. These are earned by doing basically anything in the game. You got these pretty frequently. They weren't too hard to come by. Also, by the way, if Bungie, if you ever watch this thing, can we just bump up the caps on some of these seasonal things? It's like 325, 50. It's always random and arbitrary. Bump some of these things up. Let us live a little bit. It's going to be okay. I promise. Anyway, map fragments were capped at 50. And then you would take those map fragments and you would pair those with the treasure coordinates that you earned, and you would plop them into your basic treasure map. And at first, that basic treasure map would get you 3 Umbral energy when you would run an expedition and open the chest. That was your loop. Go into Catch Crash and run that. You would get like 11. I think later on I ended up getting 12 or 13. I don't know if it was the emoting or whatever it was. Fine. You get, 4 or 5, you're capped on those. But usually if you ran about 4, you were probably good for a bit. Because it only takes like 6 map fragments. I think this one takes like, the basic one takes 5. Even the double Plunder takes 9. So you can still run this thing 5 times. If you do it this way, if you do the basic one, you can run this thing 10 times once you run the Expedition 5. So the ratio of times that you're going to be running Expeditions was always higher, for sure, most of the time. This one helped a little bit, but you unlock that thing in week like 5. And that stemmed part of the issue, is because Expedition, compared to Catch Crash, doesn't hold a candle to it. This is cool, you got 3 different rooms, different bosses, pirates, all this stuff. This is literally on a planet surface, like a patrol zone. There are some random enemies that spawn in waves. Every so often, Engrams pop out of the ground. You pick the Engrams up, chunk them into a treasure hauler, and then when you get to about 50%, you move on to the next zone, you do it again, and then you defend it at the end against a bigger boss. Nothing in this is a threat. It's 1520. And the issue is it says, oh, you might actually see unstoppable champions. Those are called ruffians, and I know most of you know about ruffians. If you don't, the problem with ruffians is they wanted you to kill them, but actually if you were efficient at the activity by just doing it normally, you would not see them. They would spawn at like 3 minutes and then like 6 minutes on a timer. Well, when the community figured out there was a time involved, they took the timer out of the activity, which you can read into that as much as you like. The timer was still there though, so theoretically 3 minutes in, you would see a ruffian. Guess what? If you were efficient, you would finish that thing in like, I don't know, 2 minutes, probably less. Because if you just chunked every treasure that spawned in there, unless they had one of those random moments where they sabotaged it, which is just an odd mechanic to say, hey, here's this thing you're doing, we're going to make it take a little longer. Every element about Expedition was pretty low on my list of like activities I've liked. It's not as bad as like Season of the Worthy of just the public event, but there wasn't a whole lot else going on. And then it was like, hey, you're making progress. Random time, they're sabotaging your thing. You could do all of that, have it sabotaged, come back, still not see a ruffian. Big frustration. Because ruffians were part of the seal. You needed to find 50 ruffians, and it was hard enough to get one of them to spawn. So that was a bit of a frustration, because the cooler activity, you'd run this like 4 times, and if you got 12, you'd be like, cool, I got like 48, I can run this for a while, and then you burn out on this one. Every so often you'd run this, burn out on this one, over and over and over and over and over. So that was the issue. So usually each week for the story, you would go do a catch crash to make sure you had map fragments. If you had map fragments already, you literally didn't even need to run this thing again. So you could skip weeks and not do this, but you gotta go make sure you do an expedition. Gotta do that every week, no matter what. Then you would go run a hideout. They were like right up here. The hideouts were basically reskinned, lost sectors, kind of different enemies, probably going through them in reverse order kind of thing, and I'm fine with that. They're like old lost sectors that aren't in the game, reusing them for telling little story bits, that's fine. And those were the hideout missions. You would go fight a random named kind of pirate leader, and they would just get destroyed. They weren't even a challenge. They weren't like a legendary lost sector boss or anything. They were just about as easy as a patrol lost sector. They were weak. You smashed those in about 5 seconds, you were done, and then typically you didn't get a whole lot after that. You might get a little voiceover, you would go to the last city of Lixney Quarter, you might get a voicemail, you might get a little line from Spider of him doing some weird stuff. You got a few moments, but I would describe weeks 1 through 4, if you take a salad, a basic garden side salad, weeks 1 through 4, it's like somebody gave you 4 croutons that you were eventually going to put on your salad. Week 5, they gave you half the salad right there. All of this big, giant info dump about Nezarec, the history of Mithrax, and Aramis is telling all this stuff to Ido right in front of Mithrax and kind of breaking all the truth about how bad her dad was. Big, giant thing. Bomb goes, lore bomb, whatever you want to call it. Cool. Nothing else is mentioned about Nezarec, who is the previous disciple of the Witness, whose pyramid ship is parked inside the moon, which we saw in Shadowkeep long ago, but not much else is told about Nezarec. It's just he was dead. Not sure how or what killed him. I don't know. Maybe it's in the lore buried. It could be. And then we get to the point where, yeah, those relics were used to make, previous Fallen powerful. And Mithrax went on a bit of a killing spree, killing a whole bunch, including other Fallen. He was a bad dude. And that's his history, and now he's trying to make things right. That's fine. That was all in like one of those kind of animated ink blot storyboards. Cool. I kind of enjoy those. Then you go to week 6, week 7, another couple of croutons. Week 8, they give you the other half of the salad. What happens in week 8? You get basically what happens in the trailer that we saw on day 0. This is what bugs me the most. In the trailer, On day 0, before we actually start the season, you see Mithrax and Eramis actually fighting with swords. Cool. In week 8, we finally get to see that after Eramis saves Ido. Mithrax still goes after her. He ends up getting the upper hand, but not killing her, and then she jumps off a cliff and is in the wind. So over the course of the entire season, we picked up a bunch of these little relics over here in each one of the hideouts, brought them back, and they are the fragments of Nezarec that are very powerful, and nobody should open them and mess with them, and they're bad. And then, on top of that, Eramis gets away. She got woken up by the witness. She didn't do her job. Now she's in the wind. Eramis is probably scared of the witness and also lost to us. So she's not really a big threat at this point. So that's the story. Not my favorite story. Not as though it was theoretically bad. It was just like, it could have been a 4-week story like Season of the Risen, because we had Brachus Forge and the 3 Hive Guardians, and then Crow messing everything up, and Caiatl asking for his head, and then Brachus Forge takes his place, which was Lord Saladin. Then he goes to kick butt in the Cabal War Council, and he's just a beast. That was cool, but it was 4 weeks. This one could have been shorter. Now, granted, we're in a mid-season. This is a 15-week season, so they probably had to stretch some things out, and there were some lore bits that were in there that weren't bad, but generally, I would say this one, low. When it comes to story, this one's going to get scored pretty low. I'm sorry. Just the way it was paced, the way it was delivered, the way the forcing of Expedition, the hideouts were not very unique or anything. It was just, I mean, you can reuse zones like in Battlegrounds, but done differently. The hideouts were just almost non-events. They were barely a thing. So that's the story. And then that kind of ties into the seasonal challenges, because the seasonal challenges themselves were all over the place. You needed to earn repute by doing your seasonal challenges. It's like, here's to upgrade the war table, but it's the star chart this time. And it was either do catch crashes, but then later on it's like, hey, do one on master. You're like, I'm sorry, what? It's not match made, so now I have to go outside the game if I don't have friends, or I can't get this thing done. That's not great. Well, then you got to go, and that's what I'm saying, make it match made. It's an option. Summon crewmates. You need to summon 20 crewmates. That's nothing. That is quite a few crewmates to summon, depending on if your teammate gets to the flag first, it doesn't count for you. So again, now you're trying to sabotage teammates. Then we get into the point of week 9, where they want you to defeat 10 ruffians, where if you are a completionist, you probably already defeated them in weeks 1 through 8. And this was not retroactive, and I think that is one of the biggest things. Please, make this stuff retroactive, Bungie. I'm begging you. Like, the things that are not retroactive sometimes bug the living hell out of me, so please. It just feels really bad if you put a lot of time into a game and then you turn around and you're like, oh, that thing that you already did like 1,000 times, I need it to be 1,010. That feels bad for every single person. Please stop that. That's a legit ask. But it's just like the challenges were not well balanced. And then if you turn around and the challenges not being really always well balanced, or there was 1 week for the quest that you needed to defeat like 50 champions. 50. I'm not making that one up. It was 50 champions for one of the like random story quest beats that you had to go through. And you're going, I'm sorry, how? Now, granted, if you went into the Master Catch Crash activity and you beat that, those champions counted for more and you only had to do that like 1 time. Was that perfectly told to you or clear, or is matchmaking available? No. So most people bashed their head against other alternatives and did not find it great. Then when you got repute, you got in here and you're like, okay, some of the stuff was obvious where you hire a little buddy, but then some of it was very much not. Like, here's an armor treasure map. That armor is garbage. Weapons at least are worthwhile. The ability to focus your weapons wasn't even that great of a thing because they were so expensive it didn't matter for the longest time, so I skipped out on that. Your double plundered Umbral energy was like, the first time you could get this is in like week 5. And then by the time you bump this one up, it would be week 6. So earning like 1 weapon over here was going to cost you like 4 expeditions just to try and get 1 roll on a weapon. And if you're trying to get some of these deep sight frames unlocked and they take 5 frames, it's going to be a while. So of course, this is where you'd put your Umbrals at first, unlock some of them, and then unlock them later. But like the guaranteed red bar a week, that wasn't there at first. And then the idea down here where the first catch crash was supposed to reward deep sight, that was broken for about 8 weeks as well. So it's been a buggy season. Some of the seasons, these past couple seasons, seem to be getting buggier. We'll get to the events because those were really, really buggy. But the star chart in general was just, these are feeling painfully slow. I don't expect a change in Season 19. It's a season in the middle of a year. Come Lightfall, I really, really hope we are kind of wrapping up the idea of the war table upgrades and all these things that we go through and seasonal challenges to unlock these things. The constriction in how they, like, just barely let you get a little more over the course of, like, weeks and weeks. It's just starting to drag. It really is. It's getting to a point it's just not... They're wanting people to engage on a frequent basis, which I'm okay with playing each week. But when you force some of the drag out, it starts to feel bad and it's going to start dragging on people. It's like if the feedback isn't getting there yet, it's going to be coming if this keeps going. So that's the star chart. That was an issue. Now, upsides, I will tell you, we got Arc 3.0. Arc 3.0, for me as a Titan especially, a blast. I had a lot of fun. My storm grenades, fantastic. So much fun. You guys may hate me for them. I didn't do much in PvE, so don't hate me there. But Arc is fun. Jolting, then you got lightning chaining, and then you got ionic traces that are available for everybody and ability energy. Now granted, for Titans, I will tell you, Thunderclap, I am sorry, but this is so not what I want it to be. Maybe it'll get changed, but somebody had fun designing it, and then unfortunately it's the exact opposite of run really fast. This is stand in place and hope you don't die. So, but overall, Arc 3.0 is good. Volt Shot is a fantastic perk, especially the sidearm. It is like one of the best ad clearing weapons I've seen. The buff that they put into Thunderlord, the Catalyst, is if they bump up machine guns, which they sound like they're going to try and do, to try and get them more equivalent for like DPS options, I guarantee you this thing is going to be an option. And I love Thunderlord with its Catalyst because it's almost like auto refilling its magazine as you go. So it is damn near amazing. This little free gift, if you haven't logged in this season or whatever, or you play for free, literally grab Thunderlord, grab your exotic for your class, pick up all of your weapons, and then pick up a couple pieces of armor that have 60. If you're a brand new player, this is nice. This is free. Like, that was actually a pretty nice nod. And Arc 3.0, in general, now Warlocks I feel like maybe got the short end. Hunters got a brand new super. But generally I would say Arc 3.0 is probably pretty well received. That's not bad. King's Fall, for a raid, I would say they actually did pretty well. I played a decent amount of it with that regular raid group that I've been lucky enough to play with, but King's Fall in Destiny 2 actually feels pretty good. They made kind of the right tweaks. Overall, the encounters feel fun. It's still King's Fall, so if you played it a lot, you still kind of know what you're getting into. But for a raid, it's fun. The weapons feel good. Some of the, like, Smite of Moraine, if I can ever craft that thing, that is an amazing pulse rifle that's got some amazing perk combinations on it. Overall, I would say King's Fall. Also very fun. I think it came down to, like, the completionists probably hate their life right now. Because you've got Scallywag. They wanted you to find 50 ruffians, as I said. Notice how this is down to 10. Bungie changed this, like, in the last couple of weeks. Notice how this is summon each first mate one time. This was 15 of each of them. Each one you have to do 15 times. If you don't get to the flag first, you're not going to get it that time you do. It's either Expedition or Catch Crash. It's the only place you can summon these guys. So if you don't get to the flag first, that summon's not yours. If you don't see that flag again that run, that's literally none. So it's theoretically you could do 45 runs and maybe get this done. That was ridiculous. They bumped this down to 1 each. This is why I'm saying some of the challenges, some of the triumphs, some of these things felt wrong and felt extra grindy. And I think it's the extra grind paired with bugs, paired with kind of a weak story that just kind of hit everybody in the wrong way. Catch Crash was cool, but you didn't spend that much time in it. Expeditions, you just wanted to pull your hair out. So, and this stuff added up. Star Chart. Notice it's not all of the upgrades. It's about 2/3 of them. And then they took it down from 9 triumphs down to 8. So they let you skip one, whether it was skip Master, skip Weapon Frames, skip the Barons. You got to skip one. This stuff changed in the last, like, week or two. And then you compare that with every one of our events. Ghost Rider for Festival of the Lost was one of them. The fact that they wanted you to do, just to get the seal, to do 35 haunted sectors, too many. Just too many. Same thing, 30,000 candy. What's the point? Candy barely has a function in this thing anyway. They are going for engage, and this isn't even the gilding version. You just got to do this the normal. This is the last one I got done. Everything, I was done gilding the Triumph before this happened. It was instantly gilded. But also, Festival of Lost was literally bugged every week from the start. like the actual ability to turn the pages, the spectral pages into the other pages, broken at the start of every week. Then the first day it took longer, second 2 weeks it was pretty quick. Weapons were okay, some were getting origin traits, some were not, then that was fixed. Then you've got the community event, which we basically cheesed, but I think everybody's thankful that we cheesed, because it was like, hey, donate 4 million. Look, this right here. Do you see that Destiny icon that is like a stretched PNG file that's like transparent, but it's not even the right image in here? There's no way that's the right image. I'm sorry. That is not the right image that belongs there. I can almost guarantee you. So that's just cute. But then it was 400 million captain's coins. But then we got to a point where we could donate other stuff. And then we found the cheese with the treasure coordinates, and we just basically cheese through it. And then the upgrades to the Elixir Quarter are so minor that everybody, if you didn't know they were done, you wouldn't know it. Like, they got a set of stairs. They're growing some corn now, but it's very, very minor. Then we had Telesto freak everybody out thinking some secret mission was coming. It wasn't much. It was an emblem. It was a cute, fun thing, but unfortunately, everybody's just so anxious for secrets and other things. It was just like they didn't read the room, and unfortunately, Telesto just, it ruined trials for a weekend, and then finally it was fixed. So, yeah. I will not say this is the worst season, because I know I bashed on it a lot. Activities, generally in and of themselves, we actually have multiple activities. Then we have hideouts, and we had to go through. Arc 3.0, not bad. King's Fall, pretty good. Overall, it's not a horrible season. I think it was just a death of 1,000 cuts. That is my best way to describe this season, is death of 1,000 cuts, because it was a bug here, an exotic that was deactivated for 8 weeks. Festival of the Lost was just a little bit too grindy. Festival of the Lost was bugged. Telesto's something, but it's not really. Here's a community event, but it's not really going to be an upgrade. Here's the seasonal story, but it's so small and tiny nuggets that you don't really get to savor much. And then finally, when you do get something, the next week is just next to nothing after it. Not much actually happens in the story, because Aramis is now in the wind. And then, while King's Fall and Arc 3.0 are fun, if you focus on the seasonal activities, a little less fun, because the burnout on expeditions happened hard. So, it's not going to be the worst season. I mean, Season of the Worthy, Season of Undying, Season of the Hunt, those are probably pretty low for me, but this is definitely one that has struggles. There are high points in it, but there are some very low points in it as well, I think. But just so many little things in it took away from the enjoyment. And being as Bungie changed the Scallywag requirements, as we cheesed the community event, and it ended up probably being for the better, it just overall ended up not being something a lot of people probably will look back on and be like, yeah, that was one of the better ones. Hopefully next season is better. We will be getting that next week. You guys know, as of right now, I would expect the trailer Tuesday morning for Season 19, because unless they change their MO, that's what this year has been. I wish it was Monday, because then I could have a chance to digest it, put a video up, and sleep, but I'm assuming it's going to be Tuesday morning. So stay tuned. I'll probably be streaming some random stuff this week. I might put up another video or two, depending on if I work on like a Grandmaster or anything. But other than that, that is all I got for this one. That is my thoughts on Season 18, Season of Plunder. Let me know your thoughts below. I'm honestly curious in the comments. If you hated it, you loved it, if you were going to rank it 0 out of 10, 10 being the highest. Is it a 2, a 5, a 7, an 8, a 4? What are you going to rank it? Let me know in the comments. Blow that thing up. I'm actually really curious where you guys land, because we will be talking about this on the podcast on Thursday. But if you enjoyed this one, drop a like. You can find me on Twitch or Twitter. But right here, hit that subscribe button, hit the alert bell. I'm going to have that dungeon guide out to you guys in Season 19, as well as many other videos in Season 19. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next one.